Hello, Bravo bosses. This is the Bravo Investigator podcast. I am your host, Dana, and today we are talking about House of Stassi episodes 3 and 4. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show and welcome to our recap of House of Stassi. So, we're here to recap the next two episodes because there are more episodes out. I was sort of confused as to how this show was going to be dropping its episodes. So, I got Disney Canada Plus or whatever it's called because I wanted to make sure I was able to get these episodes to you guys in a timely manner. So when I got Disney Plus, it said that there were two episodes out, episodes 1 and 2. So I was like, okay, great. I figured maybe they were dropping two episodes and then like one a week after that until I don't know when. I wasn't even sure how many episodes that there were going to be. So I did a recap for you guys last week of episodes 1 and 2. But then I checked this website that I use to get like American TV because listen, here in Canada, it has been a struggle to get a lot of our shows. Like Bravo didn't even exist in Canada until a couple of years ago, okay? We don't have Peacock, we don't have Hulu, so I have my ways. And so, utilizing my ways, I realized that in the US, there was a full drop of the entire season, all 8 episodes. So I was like, oh, okay. So I don't know what's going to be happening for the Canadians. I don't know if there's going to be two a week, one a week, or there's just going to be a drop of the rest of the season soon. I really don't know, but I have now watched the whole season. How could I not? But I'm going to be dropping you guys 2 episodes a week for the next 3 weeks or whatever it is. So basically totaling a month of us recapping this show. Go ahead, watch the full season if you want. I totally get that. But then come here every week and listen to my recaps of our episodes. I am curious what you guys are thinking of it so far. I am really liking it. I think the style is very interesting. I said last time it was sort of like a mixture of like a lifestyle show with like a comedic element to it. I like the chapters. I like the characters. I just, in watching it this past weekend, I was sort of thinking like, if I was not someone who knew who Stassi Schroeder was, if I had not watched 8 seasons of Vanderpump Rules, if I hadn't watched Vanderpump Villa, would I look at this character and say to myself, this is a likable character? And listen, our reality TV characters don't have to be likable, but I do question that when it comes to our main character, right? And I don't think that she necessarily comes off very likable in this show. It may be different to those of us who just sort of like quote unquote know her in our parasocial way and we just sort of excuse some of her actions just because we're like that's so Stassi. But I wonder if people who are coming into this from the complete outside, if there is anyone like this who's just like, hey, what's this new Disney Hulu show, right? And I just don't know that she necessarily has that likability to make this show to give it longevity. Like, I'm excited for a season 2. Like, I'll tell you that. I'm very interested in her life, but I feel like that's more so just because I feel like I've been along for the ride for a long time. And I feel like I don't know if there's enough of a viewership of Vanderpump Rules fans who want to continue to see what's going on with Stassi to give this show longevity. I feel like it has to have new fans, which I think they tried to do through putting her on like the Tell Me Lies podcast and Secret Lives of Mormon Wives reunion and Vanderpump Villa. But I'm just sort of curious, like what the fan base is like. And listen, I'm no executive producer. I don't know how these things are done, but I'm sure there was like testing and all of these things to determine whether Stassi was likable enough to have her own show. As I watched through, I just sort of felt like I don't know. I just don't know. Another thing is I hate that they did drop the 8 episodes. I feel like that's just like not a good strategic move. Again, I'm no executive producer. What do I know? I just feel like it doesn't feel like a good strategic move because yes, that's what they do with these Disney Hulu shows like Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. They drop it all at once, but then we watch it all over a weekend and then we're done and we forget about it until the next season, which could be like a year from now. So I just don't think that that was smart in a marketing way because she could have dragged this out for a lot longer. I will be dragging this out for the next few weeks, but still, I'm actually recording this a bit earlier than I normally would because I'm going to New York soon. I'm going for a friend's wedding. And I'm hoping to do lots of fun stuff there, like maybe go to Watch What Happens Live, maybe go to Soft Bar. So very excited, but I'm trying to figure out the podcasting schedule between now and then because I gotta figure it out, right? I gotta make sure there's episodes for you guys. I might end up recording when I'm there, but yes, I'm actually doing this episode a little earlier than I would normally be recording it, but that doesn't mean anything to you guys. We're here today to talk episodes 3 and 4. So let's get into it. We start with Stassi going over to Christina Kelly's house. And you may remember Christina Kelly from a little show called Vanderpump Rules. So Christina Kelly is basically the reason that we are all here because Christina Kelly was working at Sir. And she was good friends with Stassi, and she was like, "Hey, you should come work here, come work for Lisa Vanderpump." And that's how the Vanderpump Rules idea came to be, right? Like Lisa Vanderpump had the idea, brought it to the staff. And so they've actually known each other for like 18 years. What's interesting though is it comes up a bit here, but it also came up on Taste of Taylor, which is Taylor Strucker's podcast. She had Christina Kelly on a couple of weeks ago, and it was interesting to hear that Christina Kelly actually said that like she was fully approached to be on Vanderpump Rules like as a full-time cast member, and she had just started dating her partner Max at the time, whom she has is still with now and has a baby with. And he was like, "No, I don't want to do it. I don't think we should do it." And so she was like, "Okay, we're not doing it." And so I guess that means insofar as a full-time role because we did see her in little bits here and there. But it's interesting, and I wonder if she regrets that decision. It doesn't really seem so. But she's always sort of been that background character that's carried on through the seasons that has had like an integral role in some respects. So it's interesting to see that they're still friends to this day. I always wonder with Stassi's long-term friendships how she's able to maintain them. She's always had like falling outs with almost everybody. I mean, she did even have a fallout with Christina Kelly over Jax many, many years ago. So I'm curious to know if they've had any since, but maybe because they're both moms now, both in that same stage of life, they're just like really vibing. Stassi tells Christina how Beau wants to go back to work and how they feel like he says that they feel like roommates. And she admits that she doesn't really put a lot of time into her marriage because of work, but then also says that, or she basically says that she puts work above all else and she's not sorry for that. And that's not great. I mean, listen, I understand that you only sort of have this one time in life where you're going to be given all of these opportunities. And I so understand why she wants to say yes to everything, but it can't be to the detriment of all else. And she really looks at her life in this way of wanting to aspire to be the next Kris Jenner. And she talks about that a lot throughout the series. And at first, it feels like, okay, like that's ambitious, but then as I go through this, I feel like she's looking at that through a wrong lens because there's just so many. I mean, there was that season where I'll call Bruce Jenner Caitlyn Jenner because that's her name now. Caitlyn felt like she was getting no attention from Kris Jenner, and she left to the beach house in Malibu for like several days, and Kris didn't notice. I feel like that's something that would happen here, and I feel like that's a big thing that ended up leading to their divorce, where Caitlyn was just kind of pushed out and pushed out and pushed out to the point where she didn't even have room in the garage for even like one toy plane or whatever she was into, right? Like it was all about work, it was all about the brand, it was all about the image. And yeah, it was like family, 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 but not really, you know what I mean? And I worry about that for Stassi because they're not always just going to be there waiting in the wings. You have to put in the work with your family too, you know what I'm saying? So Christina tells Stassi to try to just do little things for Beau, like give him a kiss in the morning and take him on a date. And what's funny is we hear him say that kind of thing too, and I don't know why it's not just something simple that she can do. I mean, taking him on a date is like a little more work, sure. But, many people have told her to just give him a kiss in the morning, including Beau, and she doesn't do it. And it doesn't seem like it's something she doesn't want to do. It truly seems like something she forgets to do. And it means that like she's not thinking about him, right? Like, I don't know. He probably has her in his thoughts every day, all day. And I think he just sort of wants the same, you know what I mean? Then they talk about Katie, and apparently Christina Kelly has issues with Katie Maloney, which I wasn't aware of. Like the last time that we saw Christina Kelly and Katie, actually, no, that wasn't the last time. Well, I was gonna say Christina Kelly filmed for all of season 10 of Vanderpump Rules. It was very clear she was there as a friend for Katie, and she was just sort of there for her through it. We saw her a little bit in season 11, so I thought that they were really close. But Christina has apparently had an issue with Katie because she feels like she did so much for Katie, filmed a whole season for her, was truly there for her through everything. And then Katie, in return, gave her the bare minimum, like nothing at all in this friendship. And she seems truly, truly hurt about that. And so she does not like that Katie is around and is going to be on this show. And she seems like really like put off by it. So this is now the second person who is called Katie selfish, including Stassi. I feel like this is an interesting narrative. I mean, listen, I don't know these people, right? But it's not the person that I thought Katie was. I didn't ever get the sense that Katie was a selfish person. And like she said in episode 2, she was a ride or die for Stassi for a really long time. People change and people's priorities change. And, you know, maybe she was going through, I mean, I really do also want to know what this period of time was. And we kind of get into this a bit later, but I do want this period of time clarified because there was the period of time where Stassi was fired, which was a long time ago. That was 2020. And then there was the period of time where Katie was getting a divorce, which I feel like was late 2022. Was it early 2022? I just feel like it was a while later. And so for Stassi and even Christina to be like, she wasn't there for me, she wasn't there for me. What period of time are we really talking about? Because, you know, Katie was going through a divorce too. She was going through a really difficult time. And when you're going through something like that, like a divorce, you are selfish during that period of time. Anyways, we'll get into that in a bit, but I just think it's really interesting that there seems to be a lot of vitriol between Christina and Katie, which just seems like so wild to me. So apparently another one of the reasons why Christina doesn't like Katie and why she seemed to sort of be wrapped up in herself was at Stassi and Beau's wedding. Apparently Katie was obsessed with Rob, Beau's best friend, and couldn't stop talking about him and was like obsessed about him and was like could not and like Christina couldn't even like get in a word. And you know what this reminded me of? Because they kept saying Rob in order to tell the story. So it reminded me of like Sheena and Rob and how Katie was the one who said she sings his name like it's a siren song. And then we get that play out of like all the clips of Sheena saying Rob's name, and it's like Rob, 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 Rob. So for her to end up liking a guy named Rob, dying about that. I'm curious why nothing ever came of that. That's so interesting. So Rob seemed to have been like the hot bachelor around town because, like, you know, we find out a little bit. Well, we found out a little bit in the last series of episodes that like he thought Georgie was cute, and then we see like this scene of them talking about hooking up, and then like Katie was interested in him. So I just find that kind of interesting. Stassi tells Christina what Katie said about how if she didn't marry you or birth you or is not on your payroll, she doesn't have time for you. And Christina is livid over this comment. She thinks this is so the old Katie. Now, I feel like it was really iconic, honestly. I feel like even if she came up with it in advance, I think it was really good. And I don't really understand why Christina is offended by it personally. Because, first of all, Christina, I mean, except for this show, I guess, isn't really on Stassi's payroll. And it's what she's saying is that Stassi will only make time for people on her payroll. She's not saying that people are only on Stassi's payroll. People are only friends with Stassi because they're on her payroll. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the opposite sort of thing. It has nothing to do with the payroll people. And so I just don't know why she's taking it so personally. Now, Katie, on the other hand, thinks that filming has been going really well because she's unaware of all of this. We get her filming at Something About Her, and Ariana comes in. So this is so wild because we are getting so many crossovers and so many cameos, which I mentioned in the last set of episodes. We had the Nader sisters, we had Marciano and Jesse. So we do still get a lot of those here, and it feels really nice to almost be able to get our entire OG cast of Vanderpump Rules back on television, stretched out over like a couple of shows between The Valley and House of Stassi, and maybe a little trinkets of here and there of other people. Like it really feels like everyone is back on TV in some respects, and we get like an update on almost everyone's life. And I just love that. Like I really do. So Katie says that one of the reasons that Ariana never got close to Stassi is because Sandoval hated her. And that is totally true, right? I mean, Sandoval never trusted Stassi, and Ariana was, pretty whipped, I'll say that, when it came to Sandoval, right? So that sort of went hand in hand and made a lot of sense as to why Ariana and Stassi never really got close, except for that one birthday party they did together where it was like the Frozen theme or like the winter theme, which I really loved. I loved that season. When she told Ariana about the show, she was supportive but cautious. And Katie tells Ariana that Stassi basically called her selfish in terms of like what has been going on with them for the past couple of years. But like I said, Katie said that she was going through a divorce at the time and she had a right to be selfish. So, Stassi is also a very selfish person, and I'm just really curious the levels of this, right? It's totally fair and valid if you're going through something in your life to feel like you need your friends around you in a certain way. And so I understand why Stassi felt that she needed that. But again, given the period of time that we may be talking about, Katie was going through a divorce and also needed friends in a certain way or needed to act in a certain way. I actually had someone say something like this to me recently. Not recently, sorry. It was a couple of years ago. Someone who ended a friendship with me and said, like, it really feels like lately you've only been talking about yourself. And I was going through a mental health crisis at the time. And so, yeah, at the time, it kind of was about me because I was, just trying to stay alive. And when his dog died, this friend in particular, I was there for him every day. I was calling him constantly, checking on him, making sure that he was okay, because at that time it was about him. So maybe these two women were going through shit at the exact same time and just sort of couldn't be there for each other because they were both going through such chaotic shit. I don't know. But it can't have been that serious to Stassi because she was so willing to let Katie back in after just like one conversation. So I guess we'll see where this goes. Because Katie says, like, if things get toxic, she has no qualms with walking away. And I feel like that's what's so great about, the stage of life that a lot of these people are in now. They're not in like dire straits, or not all of them are, So a lot of them could be like, it's not like we're literally still working at Sir and we can't afford to live and this and that. If this show doesn't work out, we'll be okay. And that I think will give a lot more genuinity to the scenes and the characters and what we're actually getting because there's maybe a less desperate feel to it. Except for Stassi. I'm sure she has a much more desperate feel to this. Not necessarily giving off a desperate feel, but I just mean I'm sure there's a lot more at stake for her in this than some of the other characters, for example. So Stassi takes Beau on a date to the cemetery where they got engaged, which was actually really cute. And they play this game with like these different cards where they ask questions about each other. And they talk about her cancellation. So remember that Stassi was canceled in 2020 for calling the cops on Faith Stowers, and it was a really fucked up thing to do. And she asks Beau why he didn't resent her at the time. And he was like, well, you were pregnant, and so I sort of didn't have time to. And when the producers asked him how the cancellation affected him, he said it's like so difficult to even truly explain because it affected him in so many ways. He felt like he had to protect her and he couldn't trust anyone around them. And that feels so classic Stassi and is kind of reminiscent in what Katie was saying, right? Like how you keep your circle so small if they didn't birth you or they're not married to you or they're not on your payroll, you don't want them in your life. And I feel like a lot of that came out of people betraying her or her going through certain things. And it sort of seems like Beau is talking about the same thing, that they almost ended up making their circle so small because things got so crazy and they stopped trusting everyone around them. It was just interesting to hear him say that too, that they stopped trusting people. I mean, I bet a lot of people turned on them at the time. I bet they lost a lot of friends and it was probably a crazy time. Not that she didn't deserve a second of what happened. She 100% absolutely did. But Beau didn't, right? And like to have a man that stuck with you through something like that, wow, you know? Wow. That's all I can say. So Georgia and Georgie are not getting along. And it's nothing like real. And I don't want to like diminish that. I just mean in a sense of like they're just annoying each other, which is so valid, right? Like not everyone is meant to live together like in the same bed, which is what's going on at Stassi and Beau's house. And so Georgia is, or Georgie is going to be looking for a new place, but she's really stressed out about it. She tries to talk to Stassi about it, who keeps telling her it's like a her problem. And then when Georgia talks to Stassi about it, she's like, yeah, I just feel like we're not really getting along, but she's also talking a lot of mad shit about you. She's talking about your dark passenger and how you're terrifying. She used the word terrifying 3 times and how she's not here to be a nanny. And so it's like, yeah, it's kind of fucked up for your sister to be talking shit about you to your other family members. But I will give her the benefit of the doubt in the sense that this is a television show which Stassi is constantly reminding us of. She's constantly reminding us of the job of that show. Like, for example, in the next scene, we're about to have a dinner party, and Stassi fully says that dinner parties are for fighting, right? That is what the point of these events are on reality TV. So, given that, is it not also the job of your sister to talk shit about you to the other cast members so that they can bring it to you so that it can start a fight? Right? Is she not doing reality TV correctly? I mean, Georgie is so annoying. I don't necessarily like this girl, but she definitely is bringing something to the show, like her chaotic energy, her homelessness. Like it definitely brings an element of lack of stability that makes this show interesting, right? You could totally see a sitcom where the crazy sister who just got a divorce travels across the country to her rich sister's house to come live there, carrying a bunch of garbage bags and doesn't have a job and all these things. And that could be like an entire series, you know what I'm saying? So you gotta give Georgie that. So we get Stassi throwing this dinner party where, like I said, she plans for fighting to ensue. Taylor coming into the party, she's initially hesitant that Katie is going to be around because she hurt Stassi in the past by not being there for her in like her hardest times, and she feels like Katie was really self-absorbed. Again, I just am confused as to why there is so much hate towards Katie. It feels unwarranted. Again, I have not been there. I was not around these people over the past however amount of time. It just doesn't feel warranted. I always thought she was a really good friend and was really there for people. And again, if Stassi is willing to forgive her for this, and it sort of feels like a blip, you know what I mean? Like there was so many periods of time where Katie was there for Stassi. So if there was this one period of time where maybe she wasn't as present, is that not just like kind of easily forgivable? I mean, there are way worse things you can do to someone in a friendship. So I don't know why everyone is acting as though Katie killed Stassi's dog because it's not giving that, what I mean? And like Stassi has been in the wrong so many times in the past that it really feels like we're not giving a break where a break is sort of due, in my opinion. So Stassi decides to ambush Georgie. Sorry, I always get confused about these. There's Georgie and Georgia. She ambushes Georgie about the fact that she was talking shit about her to Georgia. And Georgie is basically saying, like, yeah, well, I didn't come here to be a nanny. The kids are hard for me. I'm afraid of you, Stassi. And yeah, I meant everything I said in a sense, right? And Stassi's like I just don't know like what I can do for like I just like why do you want to be around me? And how can you say you love me when you seem to be like very terrified of me, right? And Stassi's like, I don't even think that you truly love me. I think you love what I can do for you. And Georgie's like, what can you do for me? And Stassi's like, what can I do for you? And she's like, I am basically keeping this bitch alive. I'm giving her money to like buy food and she's living under my roof. Like, that is really disrespectful and rude. Like, I'm sorry, it is. I don't know if her family just sort of has this expectation that she will just take care of them because she's rich, but I'm sorry, that is so unfair. And I do understand you not wanting to feel like a nanny, and this is not the reason that you came to LA. You came here to be an artist and all this stuff, but you don't have a job right now, so you're living here for free. So make up for it by taking care of the kids and going grocery shopping and cleaning the house and doing other things, right? Like, you're so freaking lazy. I can't. So Christina talks to Taylor about the payroll comments, and Taylor is now livid about this. And now she sort of wants to come for Katie because she feels like Katie is really diminishing her friendship with Stassi, which, again, that's not what I think is happening, but we'll get to that in a second. We move on to episode 4. And Stassi opens this up by saying that she actually feels like she's gotten a lot closer with Beau since filming, and she thinks that reality TV saves relationships. Girl, girl, you cannot be that Delulu. Stassi, Stassi. Like, I was also really surprised to sort of get the vibe throughout all of this that she doesn't do individual therapy. And that just seems crazy to me because she mentioned in like episode 2 that like Vanderpump Rules is the kind of thing that they'll all need therapy for life. She's also had a really contentious relationship with different members of her family. And so, how can you not go to therapy? But like to truly say, like, okay, I do understand that reality TV forces you to have conversations that you weren't planning to have or things that you would have brushed under the rug otherwise, but it doesn't save relationships. Like, it definitely puts the spotlight on your problems, but it puts you in situations you would have never been in as well. And it changes you. It just really does. So, anyways, some of the ladies go out for a lesbian night. It's Georgie, it's Taylor, it's Teddy, it's Katie, because Georgie is bi. She's not new to being bi, but she's new to LA. She wants to meet the ladies. She wants Teddy and Taylor to take her out. And so she's just excited to be out on the town with the gals. Now, Taylor decides to use this opportunity to confront Katie about the payroll comment. And Katie is like, I didn't say it like that. She explained it like she didn't fit into one of those categories, like one of her kids or her husband or someone that's on her payroll in terms of Stassi having time for her. And Taylor is like, I just feel like you're trying to push me out and take my spot. Which, what? Like, where's that even coming from? And even when Stassi made that comment, Taylor was not mentioned. It's so clear that she's taking it personally and that she's, what's the word? She's like internalizing something that has nothing to do with her. Has this ever happened to you before? Like, this is such a stupid example, but I'm going to give you guys this example. So I used to have a blog, okay? It was a really stupid blog, right? About like the dumb shit that would happen to me, basically. So I was writing about how this woman at work was really annoying, but I changed like the pronouns and everything because I was mentioning someone at my current work, but it wasn't identifiable, okay? And then there was this one older woman at my work who would read my blog. She was the only one at work who would read my blog. And then I found out through the grapevine that she thought that this particular blog post was about her. It wasn't, okay? It was about someone at work, but it wasn't about her. And I had changed like all the prepositions, the pronouns, whatever, and it wasn't identifiable, like in my opinion, whatsoever. She just took something and decided that it was about her and decided to get upset about it and decided, you know what I'm saying? And so I feel like Taylor is doing the same thing here because she's taking something that someone said to someone else that had nothing to do with her and is taking it personally, and probably because deep down she knows it's true, right? I feel like there's a little part of her that feels like weird that she's on her best friend's payroll because there's even a scene like later on, which we'll talk about later. And that's why I don't want to, I hate that I watched the whole thing. I probably shouldn't have, but how could I not? But there is a scene later where Teddy and Taylor are sitting down and talking, and Teddy's like, and Taylor's like, Stassi's my best friend, but she's also like my boss. So if she says, I have to be here at this time and we need to do this project at this time, and if that means I miss the birth of my baby, it is what it is, right? So there is also a level of I am on the payroll and I have to do what my boss says. And I feel like that bothers her a little bit deep down. And that's probably another reason why Taylor wants this show to succeed for her own self, because she wants to be able to become rich and famous enough that she can take care of herself and Teddy and their baby and not have to be on the payroll, right? But Katie is doing nothing. Katie is doing nothing wrong, right? Like Katie's like, I didn't say it like that. I didn't do that. And Katie is really hurt that everyone is assuming the worst in her. And I concur. Like, I would feel so weird about this too. So then we get this weird scene of Chriselle from Selling Sunset I told you guys there were so many cameos and so many crossovers. And she's taking Stassi to this mansion staycation house where Stassi is going to bring the whole group so that they can all have this staycation. And they talk about their experiences on reality TV. For Chriselle, she just felt like it was getting too toxic. For Stassi, she feels like no matter what, Vanderpump Rules will sort of be on her tombstone. It's what she's always known for. But again, I feel like there's such an interesting relationship that people on reality TV can really relate on that the rest of us just can't. It's which is fine, right? It's just sort of one of those things where two people who may know nothing else about each other except they were both on reality TV, they probably have a lot more in common than you think because they've just had the same experiences of being told to do things by producers, being looked at in the wrong light, editing, all these things, right? And I feel like there's just this certain bond that can bond people who have been on these kinds of shows that is just something the rest of us will never truly understand. So cool that Chriselle and Stassi have this friendship. We get this scene where Stassi and Katie go for drinks, and Katie is really upset, but she basically feels like she has buyer's remorse because she feels like Taylor is coming after her, and she's never had issues with Christina. So she's like, I regret doing this show. And Stassi's like, don't you dare say that, but I think you need to figure it out with Christina. And, I kind of wish that maybe Stassi gave her a bit more in that sense. I mean, it's not really her place to talk about what Christina's issues are with Katie, but maybe she could have helped her out a little bit. That being said, I'm sure on the back end, if all of these women have been hating on Katie for a while, I'm sure they've been doing that together, right? I'm sure that it's been really easy for Stassi to have Christina and Taylor also hating on Katie at the same time that she was, so she felt a lot more validated in her concerns. But now she's brought Katie back into the mix, and her other friends are sort of left in the dust to decide how they want to feel about it. So we get to the staycation house, and Katie and Christina are avoiding each other like the plague. Christina actually tells the camera that she won't talk to Katie until producers make her. And I feel like this is, again, one of these amazing fourth wall breaks because we do know that producers do that, right? But this is such like a moment where you have someone literally telling you that, like, yeah, there's going to be a point in time where a producer says, hey, Christina, can you go have that makeup conversation with Katie now? So it's funny that she just kind of calls it out like that. Everyone sits down for dinner, and then Rob randomly just sort of brings up the fact that he almost had a kid a few months ago. So this turns into like a series of questions because people are trying to get the information here. So basically, he was dating someone for 6 months. She thought she was pregnant because she had a lot of the symptoms, but it wasn't planned. So a lot of people were questioning him on like how serious of a relationship could you have been in to have a kid with someone? And he's like, it wasn't planned, but he did buy a book about being a dad. And everyone's like, wait, so she took a pregnancy test? And he's like, well, it was negative, but everyone in her family had like a history of getting a negative pregnancy test, but then going to the doctor and getting a positive. And everybody's like, that's not a thing. I don't know if that's a thing. I mean, that sort of sounds like a thing, but I've also seen crazier things like Jane the Virgin, right? So like, what do I know? But this this is yeah, this is a weird story. It's a little uncomfortable, but Stassi is sort of taking it a different way because she's trying to create a scene, which she told us that she was going to do because it's a dinner party. So she's turning this into something else because she's like, it's crazy that you had a serious enough of a relationship to have a kid with someone, but we didn't know about it. How is it possible that none of us knew about it? And he's like, well, I didn't talk to you guys for 9 months and I dated her for 6 months. So that's how. And then she kind of can't seem to keep the gas going enough on this. So then she turns it to the whole Rob and Georgie thing. And by Rob and Georgie thing, I mean the fact that everybody knows they've been hooking up. Everybody feels like they've been hooking up. I told you guys about this little scene where they talk about hooking up. But at the table, when they're called out about it by Stassi, they both are like, no, never. It's never happened in a million years. But Georgie's like, even if it were true, like, who cares? Like, who cares? And Stassi just starts saying like dumb things, like, because some things are important to some people that may not be important to you. She then tries to bring Beau into it because she's trying to make TV here. And he's just like, this is the stupidest conversation. And he fully says, like, yeah, I feel like Stassi is doing this for TV. And I kind of hate that she's doing that because I wasn't ready to talk to Rob. And what he means is, like, I guess he's been harboring some like additional resentment outside of like this football thing that they were dealing with in episodes 1 and 2. Apparently, he feels a little bit more. So he gets into that a little bit more. He's like, you know, you're not very mature. You've been doing the same thing for a million years now. You keep dating these younger girls. And Rob's like, that doesn't make me less mature just because I'm not married. He's like, I want a family, but I feel like you guys look down on me. And I see what he's saying. Beau does sort of give him like this, I don't know, like I think that's the problem between them, that Rob feels as though Beau treats him like he's inferior because he's single and doesn't have kids and he's still living that party life. But Beau doesn't necessarily look at him in like that way. He's not looking down on him, or that's not his intent. He wants him to be more mature. He wants him to get his life together and get married and do all of these things. But he feels like Rob has just been doing the same thing since his 20s, and that if he's just going to keep repeating those same kinds of cycles, he's never going to get out of those cycles and he's never going to get those things he wants, like being a father and a husband and all of these things. But everybody's yelling in this, right? Like I'm explaining it in a calm way, but everyone is yelling. Then Beau starts to blame Stassi for even bringing any of this up in the first place. And then he says that she's making herself look dumb because he just wanted to have a chill weekend. So Stassi gets upset because he called her dumb and she walks away. And Stassi says to the camera that she would have never pitched a show about her marriage problems, and this was not part of the plan. Now, we talked about this a little bit in the last series of episodes, and it truly only gets worse from here, if I'm being honest, in terms of their marriage. Like I said, I feel like she truly went into this show thinking we're in such a strong, amazing place, me and Beau, me and my friends, and I know how to do reality TV. I won't let it break us. I know how to work the system. Plus, this is my show. I'm the executive producer. I call the shots. So I'm going to make sure this looks the way I want. But you can't control everything around you, which is something that has always been a gripe of Stassi's, right? The fact that she can't control other people. And as this goes on, which you guys will see as the episodes go on, she loses more and more control of people, including Beau, and you can't control the narrative all of the time, right? And so you may have thought this whole thing was going to play out a certain way, but because you can't control the narrative and because you can't control people, it may be different. And, you know, it's really hard to watch her marriage, to be honest, as these episodes go on. So I'm still here for it. I'm still here for watching this show. I still even feel like there's enough for season 2. But yeah, I just don't think that it's what she thought the show was going to be, which might even be a better viewing experience, right? If it's a very different thing that she had even planned, it might even be better. You know what I'm saying? So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode today. I will see you back soon for another one. Don't forget to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at The Bravo Investigator. And don't forget that I have a whole other podcast called All You Need Is You, a podcast about living your best solo life. You can get this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and I've also linked it in the show notes. All you got to do is go to the bottom of the screen and go to Apple or Spotify and type in All You Need Is You, download the show, follow the show, listen to the show, do all those great things. And I love you, BBs. I will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bravo Investigator podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at the Bravo Investigator. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and join the Facebook page. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a 5-star review.